Welcome to the Love and Longevity podcast, where we are just having conversations here. And those conversations are based off of love and longevity. So that ranges from love, friendships, relationships to aging in place, caring for our parents, caring for our grandparents, just caring in general for others, as well as just how to live your best life at every single stage. Every episode, we want to provide actionable insights, and I'm so excited for our guest. But first, my name is Christian Ross. I'm the founder and chief happiness officer of Happy Talks, where we provide social calls for older adults. Our whole goal is to curb loneliness. Hi, it's me, Christian Ross. Welcome back to Love and Longevity. I'm so excited for my guest today because we're going to talk about stem cells and we're going to talk about longevity. And my husband actually was really investigating this for his knee. So even though you can kind of I would say pick and choose body parts in a way, that was my thought process. I don't know anything about this. So I'm so excited to have our guest. So please welcome with me, Miss Danae Moya, who is COO of delphistem. Hello. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. So nice to see you again.
So good to see you. And, I love it because on your website, you literally talk about, it's all about longevity. And I was like, it's so true. What is delphistem and what led you on this path of longevity?
Yeah, we're all about longevity with the power of stem cell technology. So delphistem is a genetics and stem cell company powered by the scientific process of stem cell storage. So basically, a quick definition, when we refer to stem cells, we actually refer to induced pluripotent stem cells. So that's a scientific process that we have the capability today to reprogram our cells into iPSCs. So we call them stem cells for short. And the beauty with that is that we can differentiate those cells towards any organ of the human body. So it's kind of like having your, own biological insurance, because the earlier you store them, they will preserve and maintain that age, and you can have them when you're getting older and maintain that longevity.
I am writing this down right now. I love that. Biological insurance. That's so powerful. And it's funny too, because one of my questions was, of course, what are stem cells? And you shared that. So thank you. But you guys are truly revolutionizing preventive care, and not only with the stem cell technology, but also too with genetic screening. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I think that's just incredible because you're looking at it truly from a holistic sense. What is your view of health?
That's a very good question and I'm glad you asked that. And I know you talk about that on your podcast because, when we look after our health, it's not just one thing. Nowadays, we're all seeing this instant gratification, the magic pill, the one thing you can do to be old and healthy and all that. But as we all know, with life experience, it usually takes a number of things together. So the first thing that we all have access to and we all know about is just leading a very healthy lifestyle, very healthy, everything in moderation, right? So being mindful of what you eat, being mindful of your stress levels, your level of exercise, your social interactions, all those things that really help you have and lead a fulfilling life. And then the second part is, being practical with your health, with what we all have access to today in the health industry. And the third, take advantage of scientific advancements that are available to you today. We are actually the only company to offer stem cell storage in the way that we offer it with urine collection sample. So we are happy to be leading the way. And we know there is a lot of efforts that go into this field, but we're very happy to be leading the way because we want to make this accessible to everybody and help them use this tool in addition to their, nutrition and lifestyle to live a long and healthy life.
That is fascinating. And with the way that you're storing, what makes it different without you saying anything proprietary?
You have to follow certain protocols, right? So there are things that are developed in the research and academia world. And there was the scientist that invented the process of reprogramming cells into, they refer to it as an embryonic-like state. which basically they have the same capability as when an embryo is formed and all these different cells go towards, developing all the organs of the baby and becoming a human. So the scientist actually that invented this process won a Nobel Prize in the early 2000s. And since then, this process has been used in research and academia, all over the world. Now, we have the advantage, my co-founder and CEO of delphistem, he's an expert in stem cell science. He got his PhD with honors, magna cum laude. He's published author in scientific journals. So he's really an expert in the process. And he has, let's say, I don't want to say improved, but he has modified the protocol to be effective, to be quick, to be easy to be used for people today. And we have clients from all over the country at the moment that have gone through the process of, collecting their urine sample, sending it to us here, and reprogramming their cells into iPSCs.
I just think about all these different things. It's funny. My husband said the other day, we were looking at like the vacuum Roomba across the floor. And he's like, I think about these things I saw as a kid, that are now reality. Like, think about it. You had the watch and it was like, oh, I'm talking to my watch. Well, we watched those shows as a kid. It wasn't reality. But now your watch rings and the little robot is going across and cleaning your floor. And, even thinking of probably somewhere in some type of sci-fi movies, they were talking about making sure to store your cells so that they could regenerate. And I mean, we see that in so many sci-fi movies. If you're thinking of someone who has never even thought of what this would look like, what does this process look like for someone who's like exploring, oh, I'm thinking about longevity. I'm thinking about how can I help my body in the future? What would you say to that person who's starting their journey?
Yeah. And by the way, I'm fascinated with your illustration because we all keep referring to those both sci-fi movies and things that used to feel like science fiction and the reality today. When we were kids, seemed really, really in the far distant future. And now they're our everyday life and it's the norm, right? Even with our smartphones, like I don't know about you, we started with flip phones and all that. But I think that is also an indication of keeping an open mind of what will be possible in the future. And it's such a powerful tool to be able to preserve your cells of today years old, because let's face it, we're all at our youngest today, right? That's the reality and the journey of life that we're all on. Tomorrow, we're going to be older than today, and that's a fact. So imagine as technology and science evolves and progresses, the kind of things that might be, available to us in the near and far future. So when you go through the process of storing your stem cells when you're 30, 40, 50, imagine when you're 70 and 80, even if you were lucky not to experience a disease, you could just boost the functionality of any of your organs that are not performing as well because they're going through the natural process of aging that we all know about, right? None of these things are secrets. But instead of adding chemicals and medications to our body that we don't know how our body might react to, you can just boost that functionality with your own cells of when you were 30 and 40. Isn't that beautiful?
So I'm a very visual person. So for myself, when you said that, I saw myself being older only because of those crazy Facetune apps that I tried one and I was like, oh, will I look like that? I digress. But I just thought about like really like having something where almost if you just gave yourself an injection and it's like, or it's a bite, it's in a gummy form or whatever, or it's a pill, like whatever. That's incredible to think of. And I always say it feels like we've had like 40 years of advancements in the past 15, 20 years. So I can only imagine what this technology will look like in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Exactly that. And, you can see by all the efforts that are going towards like this whole industry, the whole biotech industry, from gene editing to stem cell technology, there is a lot of resources. There is a lot of funding. There is a lot of really smart people that are getting together and trying to find solutions because we can all agree the current approach, to wait and see if you develop symptoms, if you're not feeling well, it's not the best. And a lot of people discover really serious diseases that have advanced quite a bit, quite late in the game. So if you had a warning sign, if you knew early on, there's something happening in your body, it's early, there's things you can do, we can all approach our health differently. It just, knowledge is power. in every field, in every form, and in every aspect of life. So the more knowledge we have and the better actions we take proactively, the more we can relax and enjoy the future.
Going back to what we were talking briefly, when I said you also provide genetic screening, that genetic screening that can give you that kind of like warning sign. What does that process look like?
So with the genetic screening, we have 3 different plans, and what it gives you is information of, it's like a risk score. So in your genes, hereditary, what is the level of risk you might be carrying for certain diseases and conditions. Now, that is not in itself, it's not something that, we should be like panicking about, but it's something that can give us an indication that if, let's say you might have predisposition to, I don't know, like lung cancer, right? You probably shouldn't be smoking. You probably should not be in a very polluted area. So there are things you can do in your lifestyle. You can adjust your lifestyle accordingly, not to trigger those predispositions that you are carrying in your genes. So having that knowledge early on is very powerful for that adjustment to your life, like I mentioned, and also to let your medical doctor know, hey, listen, this condition runs in my family. I want to pay closer attention to. Let's keep monitoring it. We don't need to look for something every couple of 5 years or until we have a reason to look into it deeper. We can just keep monitoring on a closer basis, and that can help us prevent it from manifesting, whatever that is. And we have 3 different plans, to fit different needs. The basic plan, as we call it, it kind of covers the most serious, the top diseases that statistically could be lethal for men and women. So we have breast cancer, obviously, we have prostate for men. And then the extended and the advanced plan include, neurological conditions. A lot of people are concerned, like Parkinson's disease, because when you know that, if you've had a grandfather and grandmother or somebody in your family that might have had that condition, you might be carrying that gene. You don't know. You want to know, to take action. And then the advanced plan includes even more rare but also serious diseases like leukemia, lymphoma, more heart-related conditions. So if you have that full comprehensive understanding of what is happening in the genes that we carry, then you can, take action and live a long and healthy life by preventing it from manifesting.
And, it makes me think of when I went to the doctor and I said, my grandmother on my mother's side, I said she passed away from colon cancer, or maybe hers was cervical, and her husband, my grandfather, was colon. And so my mother thankfully has been very healthy. And so the doctor just said, oh, well, like it's your grandparents, you shouldn't be worried. And I'm like, is this the approach that we're taking? I'm coming to you with a concern. And I always think about, like, that's why, like, hearing about that genetic screening I feel like it just empowers people so much. Just like you said, what can I do differently in my day-to-day life? Like, oh, maybe I need to, we all need to start incorporating more greens. Okay, we admit that. But what are those other practical things I can make sure of? Like, maybe I'm going to cut down my alcohol intake to 1 day a week, or maybe I'm going to, make sure I work out 1 extra day a week, something for that cardiovascular health. But at least it helps give you a framework of like, just kind of what to be aware of. Like that's a powerful investment to me with a great ROI.
Yep, 100%. And, absolutely. I think that I don't want to play devil's advocate, but I can understand that, the health system is set up in a certain way, right? You go there with a symptom, with a problem, and this is kind of like the protocol. This is the process that we follow, and this is the medication we give you, and off you go. Now, if you have that information, and a lot of us are going through the process of doing not our own research, but looking into things a little bit further, if you go to your doctor and you say, this is factual, I did this genetic screening, and a lot of people do it today, then your doctor can take a different approach, because then, they have that data to process. Because, doctors, it is a scientific, right? Scientists, and you talk to probably a lot of people in the medical world, they go by science-based, evidence-based information. So if you give them the data, they can take a different approach to the assessment. Because, by the way, my grandfather also passed from colon cancer. So that has always been a concern of ours, and something that it could be vaguely mentioned in a doctor's appointment. But if you know the level of risk you're carrying, then your doctor might take, a different approach and go to a level further into, looking into deeper what is happening in your body.
Yeah, that takes it to a different level of how they look at it and what they could possibly recommend. That's so true.
Data is power.
Data is power. It's also too why they're trying to sell all of ours, but again, I digress.
Yeah. And to your point, by the way, earlier, I think lifestyle is something that is so abstract. And to be honest, I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion or a hot take, but we should not have to rely only on our doctor to tell us, go for a walk, eat healthier, cut down your sugar levels. These are the kind of things that we need to be aware of. We need to understand what is, how things are affecting our body as well. And like they say in Greece, you should do everything in moderation. You don't need probably to take sugar, multiple times a day. But the one time that you do, take the moment to enjoy it and just keep it at that. Keep it at, in portion control in a way, right?
Yeah. And speaking of that, you are from Greece and, there's many blue zones across Greece. And I was able to visit your beautiful country in 2018 and I did not want to leave. I did not want to get on the plane back at all. At all. But it's funny because I thought about just how I ate so much fresh fish. I've never had tomatoes ever again or olives that have tasted the way they tasted in Greece. I drank wine. I had such a beautiful, fulfilling time with food than I've honestly ever had. Just, of course, the landscape, of course, people, of course, experiences. But the food I felt like it was almost magical because it was so fresh and just simple. I would ask them, I'm like, what did you guys do to this fish? I've never had fish taken. And they're like, oh, a little Greek sea salt and a little this and that's it. A little olive oil. And I'm like, it's obviously more, but okay. But, it's true. Just like what you said, we have to be mindful of our health. But then too, there's also, I feel like communities, societies, groups that we can model after too. How would you say that your upbringing in Greece and just how you ate growing up compared to now in America, like what does that look like? And what would you suggest for people?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. And I know with blue zones, I'm a big fan, by the way, from the book to everything that is about blue zone diet, because my husband and I were talking about this the other day because he is like, you don't realize you grew up with a Mediterranean diet. Like that's literally what people are saying. I'm on the diet of the Mediterranean diet. I'm like, what do you mean? But when you read the book and probably the documentary, it's about the very simple approach to food. What is in season? What is growing naturally? With seafood, to your point, I'm still having a bit of hard time eating seafood here because I'm so used to, if you're going to have seafood, I'm used to like you go to the restaurant, to the taverna, and, they tell you, this is the fresh catch of the day. This is what our fisherman caught last night or, this morning. And this is what we have fresh. So you pick and choose and we grill it for you. And there you go. And to me, I thought that was a norm growing up, right? So the importance of things in season, like the tomato flavor. It's funny. I was talking to my mother-in-law about this a few days ago. I'm like, taste the tomato. It's different when it's local and where it's organically grown than when it's from a greenhouse. I don't know if it's a personal choice or if everybody can see the difference in flavor. That's why I'm smiling as you were saying that, because we have to go back to the natural and, simple way of life. We need to cut down on processed food. We're all in a hurry. We're all looking for a quick snack. And that's okay every once in a while. That's why it's good that we have access to this kind of solutions. But that should not be the way of our normal diet, right? Because we all know the effects, the kind of like compound effect of eating more processed food than natural, more, whole foods. So yeah, I think for me, it was that balanced way of eating to the point that now I'm having a hard time eating like meat multiple times a day because I was used to having meat once a week and fish a couple times a week and maybe chicken once a week, so that variety is still ingrained in me, that it almost feels natural, but I realize now that it's, it's part of the culture that I grew up in.
Hi, I'm Christian Ross, founder and chief happiness officer of Happy Talks, where we provide social phone calls for older adults. So while you're thinking about the care of your loved one, remember, connection is key to optimal health, and we would love to partner with you. Go ahead and visit www.happytalks.com. And it's interesting too, because when we talk about food, one thing I've been doing is really making an effort to go to farmers markets whenever they have them on the weekend or during the week, because again, just like you said, what's in season, and the way you can just taste the freshness. And two, when you said about moving fast and quickly, like now I'm making sure I have apples on hand, because it takes me 2 seconds to chop up an apple or just eat the apple in the car, but it's filling, it's fresh, it's from the ground. And the more I make those decisions, my goal is that just what your purpose is to make sure that we have longevity. It's like, what do we do? And question for you too, when it comes to that, maybe that 70-year-old who's like, I want to live to 100, 105. Is stem cell storage, because again, they are the youngest they will be that day, is that still an option for someone who's in their 60s and 70s?
Yeah, I mean, the process of aging, and again, we're all familiar with probably from the days that we took biology in school, but our cells keep dividing as we grow, right? So the functionality, I don't want to say deteriorates, but it becomes maybe weaker as we get older. But again, if you store your stem cells when you're 60, and knock on wood, something happens when you're 70, those cells are still in better shape than your 70-year-old cells, when you discover that something might be happening in your body. So depending on what might manifest when that person is 70, we will, like the science team, will do the best they can with the cells that they have access to. And again, they will be better shape than 10 years later. So the earlier, the better, really.
That's great. And especially too, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm 25, then or you're 30, like go ahead and start researching and start looking at it so that this can be part of your longevity plan. I mean, I think that's another thing too, is we are living longer. And the more I talk to older adults and they're like, I said, what advice would you give someone younger? And a lot of them will be like, really do what you love. And I love that one person who out of everyone says, make sure you're planning. And I think this is one of those segments of planning that people should look at, because yes, plan financially, plan for what you're going to do with your real estate, your investments, but also to make sure you're planning, like what you said, your biological insurance. Make sure you are biologically planning, because so much that's going to happen in the next few years. And there's so much that's already here that it's like, why not?
And, to your point, is we've made the stem cell storage super accessible price point on purpose, because this is not the norm yet. It's not as mainstream that, insurance would cover it yet. We're working on that, by the way. But the subscription starts at $39 a month or $399 a year, or lifetime option of one payment of $9,999. And by the way, the lifetime option came after people were asking for one-time payment. They're like, I don't care how much, I just want to pay it once and know that it's there for whenever I need them later in life. And that's how we put it together. And if you think about, the total cost of medications that a person might be paying in a lifetime, that's a fraction of that cost, right? So, and I love when by the way, whenever you post your stories about talking to older people and their experiences and advice that they might give, is I also have a soft spot for older, wiser people, let's say, because they really get them not the meaning of life, but those reflections are so insightful and so important to for us to listen to, because a lot of the times they also talk about, don't stress, don't overwork yourself, don't burn out, it's going to be okay. And that is the factor that I think in our generation, in our times today, that level of stress, it's almost become the trend, the norm. Like, you have to be stressed. If you don't show that you're overworked and stressed, what are you doing? Like, why are you not doing more things with your life? Right? But we need to manage our stress levels, because stress also contributes to all these health complications that we hear about. And older people, I don't want to say old people, like wiser people, get that, and they want to pass that advice down to younger generations. And sometimes we can take it, and other times we're like, yeah, okay, I have to go, but we should manage our stress.
It's so true because, and there's one woman, I will tell you, I was talking to her. So we were going to do, we were doing speed dating for older adults.
I saw that.
The first one was a hit. The second one, we actually realized that there was an event that was scheduled the same day. So like all the men were at a restaurant. So it ended up turning into a connection circle. And I turned into a connection circle. We all started talking about experiences and advice they would give and things that they've learned. And the one woman who said planning, I found out she was 90. When I tell you this woman looks 60, this is like no joke. My mouth was hanging to the floor. And I said, I need to go back and interview her on what she did, what she's doing, what has she done? Because
did you?
Well, I'm going back next week. Even after she retired, for years, she had a theater group and she would go to senior centers and perform. And now she's in a senior community and she's taking these performances in-house. But I think it's that purpose, but also too, she talked about how mindful she was about her eating and her lifestyle. And there's so many places when we think of health equity that don't have access to fresh food, that don't have access to these things that can help them with their lifestyle. And I hope that as there are farmers markets to come, like I know in Atlanta, there's a big push with the American Heart Association having these different farmers markets and things that they're bringing to food deserts. I think it's like, what are those small steps that people can take that may be in that situation? Like you said, making sure what's in season. So when you go to the farmers market, you're grabbing everything that's in season, those things. But what do you think of stem cell technology and where it's going and where it is? What do you think are those nuances that people just need to know as they're exploring what their options are?
In terms of going about the process of storing their stem cells, or in terms of how they could be the applicability of their stem cells? In terms of what?
Actually, the whole process. Like, what would it look like? Someone's coming and they're like, you know what? I'm going to go on delphistem. I want to store my stem cells. I'm 45. Let's do this. What does that look like for them?
The process is extremely easy. So when you go on our website, www.delphistem.com, and you go under services, you select the subscription package that you want for the stem cell storage. And as soon as you complete the subscription, the registration, we send you by mail a urine collection kit. I can show it to you. It's a small box. And we have also invented, that's actually a pending patent, but we have a supplement that comes with the kit that prolongs the life of that urine sample. Because as you know, probably, when we provide a collection sample, when we go to the doctor, those cells can stay for like 3-4 hours, right? So that's not something that can be used after those 4 hours. So you receive the collection kit at home, you collect your own sample, in the comfort of your home. You add that supplement is a tube of liquid medium, and then you mail it back to us. That's it. That's all you have to do from your side. Now, when we receive it here in the lab, we start that scientific process that I was talking about. So it's a process that takes 6 to 8 weeks of culturing the cells. A lot of things, I don't want to get the scientific details in it, but that process takes about 6 to 8 weeks. And once that is complete, then the induced pluripotent stem cells are being cryo-stored here in our facility. And then let's say down the line, whatever happens and you need to access your cells, you send an email to our team here, we thaw them, and then if you need them for a particular organ, then we have to go through that process of differentiating them towards that organ. Let's say, I don't know, it's pancreas, whatever. We reprogram them into pancreatic cells. And then those cells are available to be used depending what your medical doctor, decides to do. That's obviously a different service. It's a separate service to this, but it is available and it will be available for you in the future whenever you need them.
That is so cool. And I know there's probably a way more intellectual word to use, but it's just so cool thinking of this, that you can store your cells. I thank you so much for joining me and sharing this. And what is one piece of advice before we go that you would say someone, if you're like, you're on this health journey, maybe they're just having some introspection. What would you tell that person as they're looking at like steering a different course on their health journey?
Be mindful of how you live your life, your lifestyle. Like we talked earlier, be mindful of where you put your energy towards, what you give oxygen to, the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you manage your stress levels, social interactions. I don't think we talk enough about how important social interactions are today, whether that's with family, with loved ones, groups and events that you were talking about. That's giving you purpose, right? Like people who are more wise than us, a little bit wiser, those hobbies, those things are keeping the brain going. So keep having hobbies, keep having things that spark life and interest in what you do. And then alongside that, be smart about your health, right? Like do your regular checkups, monitor your health, do the genetic screening as soon as you can. The plans that we offer start at $6.99 and it could be covered by insurance. So it's still affordable even if you do it out of pocket. And store your stem cells. You're only as young as you are today. Tomorrow you will be older than today. And we welcome people. We talk to people all the time. We have a line on our website. People text us, they call us, they have questions. Information is power. That's the thing that I want to live with. And by the way, I don't know if that's relevant, but the first kind of project the first disease that we are working towards eliminating is diabetes. It's almost like the silent killer because diabetes as the disease progresses, it contributes to really serious health complications in our life. Kidney failure, heart disease, all the things that the impact is quite heavy. And at the moment, it's the 7th leading cause of death in the US, and it's expected to grow. So everybody talks about diabetes today. And, I'm sure we all have people in our lives with diabetes, unfortunately, and pre-diabetic people. So that group of people, if you know that it runs in your family, if you know you have the gene, it's a very smart thing to do to store your stem cells today and be ahead of the game before things develop in your body.
Wow. And that actually was a question I was going to ask you is like, what disease do you think would have the most possible impact with stem cells? But that's an interesting fact about diabetes. I had no idea it was that high.
It was just 5 million people in 1980, and it's now 38 million. And every year, a couple million are being diagnosed. Imagine that I'm diagnosed. So it's really, when you look at the statistics, it's kind of, it's very discouraging. That's why I wanted to stay ahead of things.
Yeah. And of course, there's what is that weight loss, those drugs that were specifically helping diabetes that are now being used for weight loss. I see that they're also now kind of looking based on the health effects to see what other diseases these drugs could impact. But of course, we want to stay away from drugs as much as possible too. So
true. But sometimes, it's almost like a crutch. Like sometimes you might need that push. It's kind of like jump starting your car. But you should not you should try to avoid, I agree with you, medications as much as you can. But if you do go that route, don't rely just on that. Like take advantage of the effect of that medication to make the lifestyle changes that you need to lead a healthy life, without chemical and medication free.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Our whole goal here is to just help live longer lives and really full lives. So I'm so glad you mentioned connection. That's the lane that I'm in every day. It's so, so important. And, that's also part of the lifestyle puzzle. Thank you so much to Miss Danae Moya, COO of delphistem. And we look forward to talking to you in the show notes. We're going to make sure that everything is there so you can find them on YouTube, on social, connect with her on LinkedIn. And just thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Christian. It was so nice to see you. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for spreading love. Thank you for supporting, and being involved in the wiser part of our communities. This is where the wisdom is. And keep inspiring and shining as well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye. Thank you for joining us at Love and Longevity with Christian Ross. If you enjoyed what you heard, give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform and be sure to follow us. And if you like more from me, you can subscribe to the Happy Talks newsletter at the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening.